ನೋಡ್ಕೊತೀವಿ ಸರ್.
So at that time, there were many protesters to the orthodox views. Those systems are called Nastika systems. Nastika does not mean a person who does not agree about rebirth or the existence of God, etc. But what it means is that they do not accept the authority of the Vedas. So first of all, there was the Charvaka system in our country. Charvaka system is pure materialism. So according to that system, only what is visible, only what is experienceable, that exists and nothing else. And therefore, they were the true Nastikas. And they were very vehement critics of the Vedic system, especially the rituals of the Vedas. They did not accept that even inference is a reliable source of valid knowledge. Only what is experienceable, that only should be accepted and nothing else. That was their stand. And so, these people, the Charvaka people, were challenging all the ways of life suggested by the Vedas. And so, they were saying that there is no other world. There is nothing called the Atman. So the question of the Paramatman does not occur at all. The Atman himself is not there. So how can there be a Paramatman? So that was out of the question. And therefore, in this life, whatever pleasures you can experience, for that only you should utilize your time according to them. They were saying, what is the use of performing various yajnas to reach the heaven? The heaven does not exist at all. No, we have not seen any person who has visited the heaven and come back. This is true for us also. We all know that. The words like Swarga, Naraka, etc. are used in the Vedas and Upanishads, but nothing of that kind actually exists according to the Charvakas. Only this world is there, and the question of moksha, etc. does not arise, because once the body is gone, once a person is dead, everything is over. There is no question of the Atma moving to any other body and being born again. All these things are false statements according to the Charvakas. And therefore, they make fun of the Vedic statements. They ridicule the Vedas. They say everything is there in this world just on account of its own nature. What they call Swabhava. The stones are strong, the flowers are soft. Why? There is no reason for that. The swans are white in color. The peacocks are having blue and various other colors. And the parrots are green in color. Who made these things? There is no reason for these things. They are in that fashion and so we have to accept it. That is all. That was the stand of the Charvakas. Unfortunately, we do not have any book written by the Charvakas. In that system, we cannot show any book. This is the authoritative book on Charvaka philosophy. Because probably they did not care to write. Or maybe they did not care to preserve what they had written. So nothing has come down to us. Only we understand the views of the Charvakas from the books of others who want to condemn it, who want to refute the ideas of the Charvakas. It is said that one Brihaspati had written the sutras for the Charvaka. Only one or two sutras of the type are quoted here and there in the books of others. But originally what the Charvaka sutras were, we have no idea. And they were very strong about one thing. Perception is the only correct means of knowledge. That is acceptable to a certain level. Because that is the only independent means of knowledge. The others depend on perception. If I had to make an inference, I see the smoke and therefore there must be fire. It is on the basis of perception only. I have perceived the smoke existing only there where there is fire. And therefore, I infer the fire. And so, what the Charvakas mean is that the independent means of knowledge is only the pratyaksha. So, pratyaksham ekameva pramanam. And in the world, there are things that come from the earth, Prithvi. There are things that come from water, that is up or water. Tejas, there is something that is produced from fire, from the sun, etc., where it is supposed that there is so much of fire. And Vayu, the air, the wind. Apart from these four things, there is nothing in this world, according to Charvaka. Then, how is it there is consciousness? All these things are achetana. The air does not understand how it is blowing. The water does not understand how it is flowing. The earth does not exist that it exists. So, how is it that we have animals, we have human beings who understand the things, who have feelings? This consciousness is coming. How does it occur? That is the question. For that, the answer of the Charvaka is there are the constituents that are used to make liquor. You all know that brandy, beer, etc., these things are produced. None of them has the ability, these constituents do not have the ability to produce tipsiness. But when you drink liquor, you have that tipsiness. How is that? Even though, you see, we all know that the salt we eat is sodium chloride. Neither sodium nor chlorine has the taste of saltiness. But when they combine, they have this new taste. In the same way, you cannot drink oxygen, you cannot drink hydrogen. But H2O, the combination of the compound of hydrogen and oxygen makes water, and we can drink the water. And therefore, the combination, particular combination, the earth, water, tejas or fire, and air, this makes life possible. Life is not something that is new. It is just the power which is produced from the particular combination of these four things. And so, there is no need of accepting any soul, any Atman. All this is only Bankam according to the Charvakas. And the Charvakas, see, the name itself, Charu means charming. Vak is speech. So, the people whose speech was very popular among the masses, they were called Charvakas. Their speech was always attractive to the common man. And these Charvakas went to the extent of laughing at the rituals that are performed for the dead persons. A person's father is dead, and every year on that annual ceremony day, this son feeds some people, thinking that making them satisfied gives food to his father who is in the other world. But the question is, the Charvaka asks, therefore, what you should do is Gachatamiha Patheya Kalpanam Vyartham. If one is traveling to another country, you send with him a parcel of food. Don't do it. Let him go to another town or another country. Here, perform is the Shraddha, this ceremony, and feed some people, then see whether the hunger of your father is quenched. That is the question he asks. And so, in that way, he completely ridicules all the ceremonies that are performed according to the Vedas. And then, we also see the Charvaka thoughts expressed in various ancient books. In the Ramayana itself, in Valmiki's Ramayana, in the Ayodhya Kanda, one seer called Jabali, he speaks to Rama about this. When Bharata was requesting Rama to return from the forest to Ayodhya so that he could become the king, Jabali advises him like that. Don't worry about your father. He is gone, he is dead. Therefore, about your father who is dead, you can just think about your future. Like this Jabali advises. The Sankhya system is there in this world. The Charvaka system was there in this world even at the time of the Mahabharata, even at the time of the Ramayana. That is what we see. Next comes what is called the Buddha system. The greatest human being that walked on the earth of India was Gautama Buddha. Gautama Buddha was born in the 6th century before Christ. At that time, there were various schools of philosophy that were prevalent in our country. And he was a prince. He was attracted to philosophy by what he saw in this world. It is said that in his capital city, Kapilavastu, while he was moving on the streets of that city, he saw a person that was suffering from a disease. On the other day, he also saw a person who was very old, and therefore that old person was not able to walk properly. He was suffering very much. That also was seen by this Prince Gautama. And then he also saw a corpse being carried by the people for cremation. And by that he understood that everyone is going to die. No one is permanent. On account of all these things, he wanted to find out a way to make the people keep these sufferings away. For that purpose, he went to the forest and performed various kinds of austerities, various kinds of penances. And finally, he got the highest knowledge, it is said, under the Bodhi Vriksha. Then he gave the teachings to this world. He taught that the reason for all the suffering is the various kinds of aspirations, desires that the human beings have. If you do not have any desire, there is no question of disappointment, and therefore you will not be feeling sorry. So, on account of this, on account of the higher knowledge he acquired as a result of his austerities, he established a new religion, in which he protested against all the ritualism of the Vedas. All these rituals taught by the Vedas are only false, according to him. He denied the authority of the Vedas and gave the world a new way of life. It is called Ashtanga Marga, and according to that, one has to speak correctly, Samyak Vachana. Samyak Ajivana, one has to take up a profession which does not go against the norms of the society. That is, one should not become a thief, one should not become a robber, and so on, like that. Only what is acceptable to the society, what does not involve killing of animals, etc., such a profession should be taken. Like that, he gave the way of life to this world, and thus he became one of the greatest revered persons in this country, and his thoughts developed very much in this country, and it reached various other countries also, crossing the oceans. I had visited Thailand, where there is so much of worship of the Buddha himself. To whichever town you go, you find the big Buddha being worshipped there. In Bangkok, wonderful, the great Buddha. See, you have to go from one place to another to see the whole statue of that Buddha, that reclining Buddha. And so, Buddhism became so much popular. All his talks, whatever he taught his disciples, all those things were recorded in ಹಲೋ ಯಾರ್ರಿ ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ 6 ಗಂಟೆ ಮೇಲೆ ಮಾತಾಡಿ, ನಾನು ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಲೆಕ್ಚರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. So, the Buddha's religion became very popular. Later, from the Tripitakas were written in a language, in a Prakrit type of language, which is called Pali. And later, Buddhist religion developed a lot of philosophy. Even though we call it one religion, the philosophies are many. Just as in the first lecture, I talked about various branches of the Vedanta. Similarly, the Buddhist religion itself divided into various branches, and therefore there were various schools of philosophy. Shunyavada, that was one, according to which everything actually does not exist. Only Shunya exists in this world. There was also Sautrantika way of thinking, which accepted the existence of the outer world, but not its reality. Everything, sarvam kshanikam kshanikam, sarvam swalakshanam swalakshanam, sarvam dukkham dukkham. These were the main tenets of Buddhism. So everything is sorrowful, everything is miserable, and everything is kshanika, momentary. Nothing lasts for more than one moment. Even though we think something is existing for a long time, actually it is not one thing that is existing, but many things coming in line. The idea is, when we look at the flame of a candle, we say that that flame is burning for 1 hour. But actually, the flame is different at every nanosecond. If you consider how the molecules of fire are coming out, every minute it is different. We say that the Ganga is flowing here for 1,000,000 years. But every moment the Ganga is different. That water has flown out, new water is coming. And therefore, no person can step into the same river twice. You have to understand this. And therefore, everything in this world is kshanika, momentary. The body that I have The Nagaraja that was speaking in the last hour is not the same Nagaraja. So many cells in the body have been destroyed and new cells are being produced. That is why if you look at a person after 5 or 6 years, we do not recognize him at all. He has changed so much. Then we recognize him when he introduces himself. How much you have changed. And therefore, you must understand that everything is changing every moment. Not only about the living beings, even the non-living things, like a mountain. We say that it is the same mountain. But how many trees that grew there have disappeared? How many new trees have come up every day? Just as a tree is new, the mountain is also new. So friends, this was the conclusion of the Buddha. And so, according to him, there is no permanent substance called the Atman. It is only a series of sensations that is continuing. Even the modern scientists are of this view only. There is nothing called the mind. There is nothing called the Atman, according to them. In the brain of every human being, there are millions or billions of neurons. How they react to the external stimuli, that is what is called knowledge. And therefore, the Buddha said that no Atman exists. It is called Nairatmyavada. Only on account of this concept of Atman, my Atman is permanent. I am going to be born again in another life. I am permanent. I am eternal. On account of this, there is so much of violence in this world. When people understand that no such Atman exists, then there will be no conflict. There is no reason for having any difference of opinion at all. So, in this way, Buddha's teachings grew in various ways. Even there are Madhyamikas who profess complete Shunyavada. There are Sautrantikas, there are Vaibhashikas. Actually, Buddhist philosophy is not just one. They have difference of opinion among themselves. Various schools under the umbrella of Buddhism grew up in this country. And that was one of the religions that became very popular all over the world. And even now, various types of Buddhist studies are being done in various universities. Not only in India, see, in those times you might have known that there was the Nalanda University, which attracted students from various countries. The Buddhist religion, the Buddhist philosophy had grown so much that students from different parts of the world were coming to India. And only on account of this Buddhism, which had spread into Tibet and also to China, so many relations grew up. You have heard of some travelers like Huan Song who had visited India. That was because the same religion was there. You might be surprised to know that even in the 11th century AD, the Emperor of China had established a translation bureau in China for translating the Buddhist works into Chinese. Such was the popularity. Scholars from India were invited to China in the 11th century, 12th century at that time. I'm talking 1,000 years ago. They were being invited to help in the knowledge of those texts so that they could be translated into Chinese, into Tibetan and other languages. And if you look at the history of Indian logic, you understand that most of our books, Buddhist books written in Sanskrit, they are lost in their original. Only their translations are available. Some of you might have heard about the book called Buddha Charita. Buddha Charita means the history of the Buddha. That was written by a Sanskrit poet called Ashwaghosha. He was a very great recognized teacher in those times, at the time of Kanishka, King Kanishka. And his Buddha Charita, many of the parts of that Mahakavya in Sanskrit are lost. They are available only in Chinese translation. So we must understand the influence, the impact of Buddhism all over the world. Many people converted to Buddhism. Now it is happening even in India. The Prakrit institutes where the language of Pali is taught, they are coming up. And all of you know about the inscriptions of Ashoka. In the 3rd century before Christ, at the end of the 4th century maybe, Ashoka wanted to spread the Buddhist philosophy, Buddhist religion all over the country. And so many inscriptions were written on the rocks. And what do we see? That is written in the Brahmi script. And when the British, we did not know about those inscriptions at all. Indians did not know about it. Only the Britishers who came here were curious about them. And they wanted to find out what was written there. We did not even know that, you see, even in Karnataka, we have Ashoka's inscriptions near Chitradurga, etc. But we did not know about them. The Britishers were curious and announced in those days, in the 1800s, the beginning of the 19th century, that anyone that could read those inscriptions would be given 10,000 rupees. In those days, 10,000 rupees means equal to 10 lakhs of rupees today. Every rupee was so valuable. But no Indian came forward to read it because there was no one who knew the Brahmi script. And then one Britisher himself, he devoted his whole life to decipher that script. And then we understood that these were Ashoka's inscriptions, where he calls himself Devanam Priya. Such was the spread of the Buddhists. So this is about the Buddhist philosophy. Next comes again a non-Vedic religion called Jainism. The Jain system, it was somewhat different from the Buddhist system because the Jains accepted that a permanent soul exists. The soul is born again and again in this world. This cycle of birth and death goes on and on. Jains accepted this. But they also denied the authority of the Vedas, and therefore they are also considered as Nastika technically. They do not call themselves Nastikas because they worship gods. They have temples for Indra, Shruta Devi, etc. They have their own temples. And therefore, this Jainism, this was a very powerful religion. Vardhamana Mahavira was a contemporary, was a senior contemporary of Gautama Buddha. He was the 24th Tirthankara, and therefore, even before him, for many centuries earlier, there was Jainism. The Jains accept that there is Dharma, there is heaven where Indra rules, there is Naraka where Jivatmans suffer. All these things are accepted by the Jains. But they do not accept a God who created this world. Such a God does not exist. And they are of the opinion that it is possible for a human being who is free from all the contacts of this world, whom they call Vita Raga. Raga is attraction towards the things. Vita is cut off. One who has cut off all the attractions of this world, for such a person, it is possible to become omniscient. That is, such a person can become Sarvajna. He is the Tirthankara. They accept 24 Tirthankaras, starting from Adinatha up to Vardhamana Mahavira. And all the speakers of Kannada, they very well know that the first era of Kannada literature had works only from Jains. Our first poet, Pampa, our greatest poet, Ranna, Panna, Janna, all these were Jains. Because in those days, up to the 11th century, the royal families all were Jains. The Gangas, the Rashtrakutas, even the Faisalas up to the time of Vishnuvardhana, they were all Jains. And therefore, Jainism prevailed very strongly all over India. Now we have clusters of Jainism in Karnataka, in Gujarat, in Rajasthan, and such places. Therefore, Jainism is a very special type of religion. It has a very strong philosophy. According to that philosophy also, there are infinite number of souls. The Jivatmans are many. Every Jivatman has various lives. Now I am born as a man. Maybe in my previous life I was a woman. It is also possible that I was a bird or a lion or an elephant. Anything it is possible to be born. Every life is so important. And therefore, the greatest principle of Jainism is ahimsa paramo dharma. Everywhere, even in insect, even in a mosquito, there is life. A soul is there. And therefore, non-violence, ahimsa, is the greatest dharma according to Jainism. And this has impacted all our lives very much. If we people are vegetarians, the reason for that is the influence of Jainism. At earlier times, it seems that all people were non-vegetarians. Even the Brahmins, even the Kshatriyas, everyone used to eat meat. Probably on account of the of Jainism, people have become vegetarians. So, this was also an unorthodox system, but which has a very strong, great philosophy and great literature. According to this, every human being, of course, I have to admit that even in Jainism, there are two main sects. One is called Shvetambara, another one is called Digambara. The sadhus of the Digambara sect, they renounce all clothes and they stand naked. You might have seen the Gomateshwara in Shravana Belagala. There we see, because it was Bahubali, the son of the first Tirthankara. His elder brother was Bharata, and there was a tussle between them for the sake of the kingdom, and Bahubali decided that just for the sake of a piece of land, is it necessary to fight with a brother? And therefore, he renounced everything, took to Vairagya, and stood there in penance. And his figure we see near Shravanabelagala and in various other places in India also. And therefore, that belongs to the Digambara sect. The Shvetambara sect, the sadhus wear the white clothes and they have the highest type of Vairagya. In this system, whichever books you read, if you are Kannadigas, if you are the speakers of Kannada, the great work of our first poet, Pampa, is called Adi Purana. Adi Purana, of course, he has also written Vikramarjuna Vijaya. That is the story of the Mahabharata. But Adi Purana is the story of the first Tirthankara of Jainism. And in Jainism, that Tirthankara, the first Tirthankara, about his Bhavavali, that is his various appearances in this world in different forms, that is described. And there he gets total disillusionment about this world when he sees the dance of a dancer called Neelanjana, and he gives up all the interest in this world and goes for higher knowledge and gets it and becomes a Tirthankara. This is the essence of Jainism. So the Jainism, mainly in its philosophy, it talks about Anekantavada. In this world, nothing is of one type. Everything has different aspects. Everything is possible, but not only in one way. You may call a building a big building. Yes, it is a big building when compared to my house. But when it is compared to the palace, it is small. So, is that house big or small? Think about it. Everything is like that. If you say a line is long, it is only relatively. You can draw a longer line. A person is very intelligent. He is speaking so beautifully. That is true. But when you compare him to some other orator, then the talk of this person is so useless. So, everything is only relative in this world. Nothing is decisive. This is what is called Anekantavada or Syadvada. Syat means maybe. It may be like this. It can also be otherwise. When this Anekantavada is accepted, there is no reason for any confrontation. Only when I say that this is only like this, Vishnu is the only highest God, like that if I say, then there will be opposition, then there will be protest. It's possible that he is great. It's possible that the others are also great. This type of philosophy was given by the Jains to solve the social problems. And so that is also a great thing. And about the size of the Atman. What do you think about the size of your Atman? Is it atomic or is it Vibhu? That is all pervading, existing everywhere. Or is it the size of your body? According to Jainism, the Atman does not have a particular size. If you have a bulb, see, an electric bulb is there. If it is shining in a small room, the light spreads up to the wall of that particular room. But if the same bulb is lit in a large hall, it spreads to the whole hall. Like that, the Atman, when it is in the body of an ant, it is very small. But the same Atman, in the next life, they occupy the body of an elephant. So it grows. It is larger. Even the elephant, when it is a calf, it is very small. But when it grows up to an adult elephant, it is very big. And therefore, the Atman takes the shape of the body. It is possible to understand everything, even if a mosquito comes and sits on my finger. It is learned by me. I understand it. I know that. And so, this Jainism had a very great influence on the life of India, and there were very, very great scholars in Jainism. Samantabhadra, what a great logician. He knew logic so well. Somadeva Suri was one of the greatest poets. Jinasena, he wrote the Adi Purana. So, Jainism is one of the philosophies which is non-Vedic but very influential, and the arguments that they have given in support of their views are very strong. It is true that Shankaracharya and other orthodox scholars have tried to refute the views of the Jains, but equally strong are the arguments given by later Jain scholars in answer to these refutations. So, anyone that is interested in the philosophy of India should actually study The books of the Buddhas, Buddha literature is so vast. Great scholars like Nagarjuna, Dharmakirti, they have written wonderful books. Similarly, in Jainism, they have such poetry, such literature in various languages like Kannada, Sanskrit, Prakrit, Gujarati, Hindi. So many works have been written by Jain scholars. A person who wants to have a glimpse of Indian philosophy, he should look at all these things. Otherwise, we will be like the blind men who try to understand what an elephant looks like. One that is touching the tail, thought the elephant is like a fan. One that touches its stomach thought it is like a wall. Another one that touched its legs thought it is like a pillar, and so on. Our knowledge will be partial if we look only at the Vedic systems of philosophy. India is such a vast country that it accommodated views of all the people, starting from rank materialists like Charvaka, who thought only this world is true, nothing else is true, up to the absolutist view of Shankara, where it is said, Jagan Mithya, all this world is only an appearance. The true thing is Brahman, the universal soul, that itself is true. So much of difference is there. And so, it is a whole world of thought. You scholars should look at the whole picture. A holistic philosophy is necessary, not a partial philosophy. We should not come to the conclusion that, well, this system itself is the best, that is our system, nothing else is true. Such a view should not be there. You should have a liberal view, look at all aspects of truth. The world is so big, so vast, so huge that various views are possible. Just as thousands of rivers flow to the ocean, there are various roads that lead us to the truth. And so, friends, I am concluding my talk now here, trying to give some idea of the non-Vedic schools of philosophy that grew in India. And you are welcome now to give your comments or ask for clarifications or put questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.